everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another news update. This time we have some big news about the debut of a former WWE Superstar in Impact. It's one of those old chestnuts, isn't it? What's so-and-so doing in the Impact Zone? Except it wasn't quite the Impact Zone, it was a co-branded show between Impact and another promotion, but it could signify the beginning of this particular superstar's Impact career in earnest. Secondly, also, we have two big updates regarding the big All In show on September 1st. That's the show that's not officially affiliated with any promotion, but has been headed up by Cody and the Young Bucks. It's been making big headlines over the weekend, and we've got a few little extra updates to give you here and there. So without any further ado, let's get straight on with it, and let's get straight into all of the news. Yes, this past weekend at a co-branded show between Impact Wrestling and Big Time Wrestling California called Cali Combat, which was in California, a former WWE superstar made his debut by the name of James Ellsworth. Any two men with a fighting hands stands a chance. That's his catchphrase. Let's not fact check that. Let's just carry on. Ellsworth got into an encounter with Carl Jack, a man I'm not too familiar with, but apparently just seems to have the gimmick that he's a big sort of grizzly bear-esque man, a much larger man than James Ellsworth, but Ellsworth picked up the surprise victory with a low blow and a no-chin music. Now, obviously that was a nice little appearance for Ellsworth, popped the crowd at a relatively smaller show, but does it mean that he'll be making his proper debut in Impact on an episode of Impact, or, at some point in the Impact Zone itself in Orlando, Florida? I'm not too certain, but the fact is, he's now made his debut at an Impact affiliated show, and I'm sure that Scott D'Amore and Don Callis certainly have their eye on Ellsworth and are looking for ways that he can be incorporated into storylines. Now, we all know that Impact have never been shy about using former WWE talent, but I don't know if Ellsworth counts in that regard. Yes, he made his name in WWE, but it's not like when they took sort of Mr. Anderson or MVP or someone like that. Ellsworth is, of course, a bit more of a novelty in the sense that he was just a jobber on WWE TV, one who managed to secure himself a main event storyline alongside AJ Styles, of course, but still one who, I guess, can't be as broadly used, or as, for example, they couldn't push him and make him the Impact World Champion, certainly not if they were being sensible about it anyway. So I guess the fact that he did turn up at Cali Combat is, a factor in favour of the evidence suggesting that Ellsworth's about to become a regular member of the Impact roster. But on the negative side, on the sort of side saying this doesn't mean anything necessarily, is the fact that maybe these days Impact's more of a straight wrestling-based show. Yes, there's still storylines going on, there's still all the soap opera stuff we love in professional wrestling, but it isn't as convoluted and as kind of twisted and as overshadowing of the actual in-ring product as we've seen from Impact in previous years. They've kind of refocused in 2018 and put a little bit more of an emphasis on the ring work itself over perhaps maybe the more bizarre or the more complicated storylines. Now, with that in mind, obviously Ellsworth's entertaining in the right sort of situation, but at the same time, he's not AJ Styles, is he? He's not one of the top tier workers in the world, and maybe he's more of a storyline based guy than a wrestling based guy. But it doesn't really prove anything. I mean, they've broadened their appeal, Impact, and there's bits of story everywhere, there's bits of wrestling everywhere, and I'm sure that Ellsworth would have a place if they wanted him to. And that's the main question, do they want him to? Very interested to see what Ellsworth will do next. He's been accepting bookings on the independent circuit, and maybe this could be his new permanent home. I'm not too certain, but maybe. Now onto the big news from All In over the weekend. The tickets went on sale for the event on September 1st in Chicago, Illinois, and sold out in under half an hour. It's a monumental landmark for independent wrestling, if this can be considered indie wrestling, which I think it probably can be. I mean, it's as indie can be if we take it at face value, the fact that this is headed up by some wrestlers in the form of Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and not affiliated with any particular promotion, although I'm sure there's close ties with Ring of Honor and with New Japan, judging by some of the names that have been announced on the show. But Twitter was ablaze with people sort of tweeting their praise for the marketing strategy of All In and the popularity and how well they've managed to build it up without even really announcing any matches. They've announced one match, which I'll get to, in a second, but even Jim Cornette had kind words to say, and he's not been too complimentary about a number of men who are set to appear on the show, but at the same time, he did acknowledge that in his tweet. He said, you know what, I've had my issues with some of the people appearing on the card, but I have to applaud the way that it's been marketed and, sold to people, and it's, he was echoing all of our general thoughts, I think, the general consensus being that it's a tremendous success so far. It just remains to be seen whether the show itself will impress as much as the build-up. Now onto that one match announced, and then I'll also talk about a big name that's been announced as well over the weekend. So the one match that's on the card currently is a Cody Rhodes match. Of course, he is one of the figureheads of All In. He will be taking on, well, a lot of people. This might surprise a few people because I could see him, booking himself against a more high-profile opponent, but he's kind of put himself more in a match that's more of a traditionalist kind of thing. I'll explain. Basically, he'll be facing Nick Aldis, who is, of course, the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Now, Cody is obviously the son of Dusty Rhodes, an NWA legend, so there's obvious ties there. But at the same time, it kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought we might see, you know, Cody and the Bucks team up for a huge, crazy tag match against some opponents, or maybe there'd be some kind of intra-Bullet Club kind of thing again involving Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. But no, he's booked himself against Aldis for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. It's a very interesting match indeed, and one which probably has a different sort of flavour to the other matches we can kind of guess at being booked on the show itself. And that big name that was announced recently is none other than Rey Mysterio. We last saw Rey Mysterio in WWE quite recently at the Greatest Royal Rumble, where he was an entrant in the Rumble match itself, but his appearances have been sporadic at best ever since he returned at the actual Royal Rumble back in January. He's also appeared in New Japan when it ran that show in California this year, facing off against... No, excuse me, he was meant to face off against Jushin Thunder Liger, but an injury sadly ruled him out, and then he appeared at the show and cut a promo saying, "I will be back to wrestle for the New Japan fans," and then Ospreay filled in, wrestling Liger instead. But it seems like Mysterio's fit and healthy now, and I mean certainly will be raring to go by the time September 1st rolls around. It just remains to be seen who his opponent's going to be. But any show that's got Rey Mysterio on it is probably going to get a nice boost in ticket sales. Not that All In needs that, having sold out in half an hour, as I just said. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching this news video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And you can check out our Patreon as well if you want, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never, ever forget, of course, to join us.